When my wife and I inherited Grandpa's old farmhouse on the edge of a newly minted suburban development, we knew there'd be friction. The house sat on 5 acres of land, mostly untouched, with Grandpa's old garden, chicken coop, and a hand-built privacy fence surrounding the property. We'd only just moved in when the HOA started sniffing around. Now, to be clear, we never joined the HOA. Grandpa's property was deeded outside their jurisdiction, but that didn't stop them from trying to fold us in through technicalities and pressure. They started small. Letters about unkempt aesthetics, nuisance animals, and even the unauthorized structure of Grandpa's 40-year-old tool shed. But the fence? That was their white whale. It was tall, nearly 7 feet, made of reclaimed wood, and topped with copper wire to keep out raccoons and nosy neighbors. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid. And Grandpa, being a Depression-era farm boy turned electrical engineer, had rigged it years ago with a harmless but effective deterrent. A low-voltage electric wire, activated by a remote in the house. It wouldn't hurt a person, but it'd give a nice little howdy to anyone who touched or tried to climb it. After the 3rd HOA notice was shoved in our mailbox, demanding we lower or remove the offensive perimeter barrier, I politely reminded them, again, that we weren't in their jurisdiction. That should have been the end of it. But then came Brent. Brent was the HOA's compliance officer, freshly appointed, power-hungry, clipboard-clutching, and about 130 pounds soaking wet. He fancied himself the sheriff of suburbia, and for whatever reason, he decided our fence was his hill to die on. One afternoon, while I was running errands, Brent showed up. My wife was home with our 2 kids. She watched from the kitchen as he paced along the fence line, took pictures, jotted notes, and eventually started climbing it. What Brent didn't know was that Grandpa had shown me how to flip the power to that wire before we moved in. My wife, watching from the window, calmly grabbed the remote, pressed the button, and waited. When Brent grabbed the copper strip and hoisted himself up, he let out a yelp loud enough to scare the chickens. He lost his grip, slipped, and landed face-first in a patch of muddy flower beds. He scrambled to his feet, flailing, yelling something about assault and lawsuits. My wife walked outside holding her phone, which had recorded the entire thing, from him trespassing to the fall. Brent screamed, "You electrocuted me." She smiled. "Nope, just gave you a spark. Same current Grandpa used to keep raccoons out of the tomatoes. And for the record, you're on private property. Want me to call the sheriff?" Brent stormed off, muddy, humiliated, and steaming. 2 hours later, I returned to find a hand-delivered notice from the HOA. Final warning: non-compliant fencing will result in fines and legal action. So I made a call. You see, Grandpa wasn't just an electrical engineer, he'd also patented the fencing system he used. And that patent, which I now owned, came with legal protections. I forwarded a copy to my lawyer and filed a cease and desist against Brent personally, for trespassing and harassment. A week later, we had a formal sit-down with the HOA board. I brought my lawyer. Brent did not. We played the video, showed the patent, highlighted the property lines. My lawyer ended with, "If your client continues to enter this property or threaten legal action without jurisdiction, we will countersue for damages, trespass, and harassment." The board looked at Brent like he'd just sunk their boat. 2 days later, the HOA formally apologized. Brent was relieved of duty, pending a review. We never heard from him again. The fence still stands. Sometimes, I sit on the porch, sipping iced tea, and watch the HOA members walk by, carefully keeping their distance. And I think Grandpa would be proud. Because out here, good fences don't just make good neighbors. They make great stories.